Check in.
Rhubarb. These sour stalks have been a staple of compotes, pies and crumbles in the UK for hundreds of years. They're packed full of malic and oxalic acids, and if you don't want to have a sore tummy, it's probably best to cook them before eating them. In medieval times, rhubarb roots were actually traded along the Silk Road from Asia and frequently commanded prices higher than cinnamon or even saffron at the time. These days, rhubarb is a super prolific traditional garden favourite. Yorkshire is actually very famous for the quality of its rhubarb, the best of which is grown in dark, hot sheds and is harvested by candlelight. The very last of the rhubarb signals the end of summer, and unfortunately, this is the last of the rhubarb. Even more recently, there's been a major trend for these crimson stalks to flavour gin liqueurs by the bucket load. And there's a reason for that. Rhubarb and juniper love each other. The floral elderflower-esque elements of rhubarb complement those evergreen resinous notes of gin delightfully. So we should probably make some drinks. Every week I break my drinks down into 3 sections. Super simple, where no specific tools are required. Mega tasty, where we might have to make a syrup or an infusion. And ultra fancy, where maximum effort is required. Now with all this being said, we should probably go ahead and make some drinks. But first, we need to do some prep. Alright, so the first thing we need to make today is a simple rhubarb syrup. Now, I'm using a rhubarb that has been very nicely donated to me by a friend, and it's what we call summer rhubarb. It hasn't been grown in the dark, so a majority of the stems are actually green rather than red, but that shouldn't matter, it's still all delicious. Chop 225 grams of rhubarb stalks into small chunks and cover with 225 grams of caster sugar. Give this a shake until all of the chunks are coated, and then put this to one side for an hour for the sugar to draw out as much liquid as possible. In the meantime, set a pot on medium heat and lightly toast 3 grams of caraway seeds for about 60 seconds. Caraway is a slightly mentholic note that complements the garden floral notes of rhubarb. Add in the rhubarb and sugar mix. By now that should become like wet sand. Follow this with 225 grams of water and cook on a medium heat for around 45 minutes until the rhubarb chunks have loosened and have let go of their delicious juice. Turn off the heat and add in 2 Kaffir Lime leaves whilst the syrup is cooling. These are pretty pokey, so less is more. Set this aside to cool for 1 hour before filtering through a muslin cloth. Interestingly, the rhubarb mix looks brown in the pot, but once it's filtered, it takes on that distinct rhubarb rosy colour. Taste the syrup for flavour, which is delightful. Bottle, label, and stick in the fridge for later. Before we turn the syrup into something altogether more effervescent, let's make a drink. So the first drink is a Rhubarb Gimlet. Although it seems like an unusual recipe at first, this cocktail rocks. It starts by first peeling a lime with a sharp knife and cutting into a nice skinny twist for a garnish. Add then to a jar or shaker 30 ml of a rhubarb liqueur. I'm using Gabriel Boudier, which is the greatest of all time, no doubt. 40 ml of Porter's Modern Classic Gin. This is a bright and citrusy gin led by Buddha's hand. And 20 ml of Rose's Lime Cordial. It's the essential for any home bar. Can you call it a gimlet without Rose's Lime Cordial? Answers on a postcard, please. Add some ice to the jar, grab a kitchen fork and use the handle to stir until chilled and frosty. Use the business end of the fork to hold back the ice whilst pouring into a small cocktail glass and garnish with that cute little lime peel we made earlier. This little belter is tart without being overly sweet, with the floral aspects of the rhubarb shining through. It's a killer for sure. This is a rhubarb gimlet. Cheers! Back in the prep kitchen, this is actually the first time that I'm including a proper ferment in these videos. So hold on to your butts. The first thing we need is some active whey. The easiest way to collect this is simply hang some yogurt in some muslin cloth and collect the liquid that drips off. That's it. Let it drip through for an hour or so until about 100 ml of whey has been collected. You can use the hung yogurt as a delicious addition to kebabs or even as a cream cheese substitute. So to make our initial lacto rhubarb soda ferment, simply add to a large-ish sterilised jar 200 grams of our rhubarb syrup that we just made earlier, 300 grams of spring or de-chlorinated water so that it won't interfere with the fermentation, 50 grams of that liquid whey, cover tightly with cling film and leave in a place out of direct sunlight and a place that doesn't get too hot. As the ferment rolls on, leave for about 7 to 10 days depending on your taste. I'm looking for a slightly sweeter ferment, similar to a kind of can of Coke, I guess. Whilst this is fermenting, this gives us plenty of time to make another drink. Second drink is the Candlelight Sour. It's a delightfully floral and chinnable drink that our rhubarb syrup plays a starring role in. To make this tidy belter, add to a jar or shaker 40 ml of bar salt pisco, which is very grassy and has a load of berry and ginger notes. 20 ml of freshly pressed lime juice, 20 ml of our rhubarb syrup, 20 ml of the delightful Cocchi Rosa, which is a killer Italian aromatized wine with strawberry and vanilla notes, and the white of a whole egg. Vegan alternatives are available and they work very well too. I just prefer chicken juice. Shake everything together first without ice in a dry shake. I prefer doing this first as it's less messy than afterwards. Once thoroughly whipped together, add plenty of ice and shake super hard. The longer and harder you shake, the finer and tighter the foam, resulting in a fluffier drinking experience. Fine strain into a rocks glass over a single ice cube. Try not to jiggle or sugar while straining, as that will affect the final texture. Garnish with a couple of customary drops of Angostura bitters and give them a swirl for extra fancy points. This is a delightfully smooth and delicate sour that showcases the tart floral aspects of rhubarb. Bright, grassy pisco lifts rhubarb, rose, and vanilla through that decadent foam. This is the Candlelight Sour. Cheers. Okay, so 8 days have passed and it's time to check on my ferment. Now, my ferment developed this strange looking pearly white mold on top after a few days, and I was super worried about it ruining my batch and having to start all over again. However, I consulted the fermentation oracle, Mr. Sandor Katz, and in his book, he says this is a kind of yeast that forms naturally. It shouldn't affect the final outcome and it's harmless as long as you skim it off. With a plastic spoon, I'm going to skim off as much of this off the top as possible, and then I'm going to pass the whole thing through a coffee filter before bottling, as there was quite a bit of leftover fiber that I want to take out. This took ages to filter, but once filtered, pop into a small flip-top bottle with at least 5 centimeters of headroom for that CO2 to build up and get fizzy without exploding. Bottle, label, and stick in the fridge for 48 hours to pressurize, and then cross your fingers that it's not dead. Alright, so it's finally time to make the Undercover Paloma. This drink has taken the best part of 2 weeks to put together, but it's actually very simple. Start by adding to a jar or shaker 35 ml of Ilegal Mezcal. This is a very lightly smoked Mezcal, and it has this wonderful caramel-like soft sweetness. 20 ml of Boudier Bianco, which is a killer Italian-style vermouth. Light and summery with spiced florals, it's awesome. 20 ml of pink grapefruit juice that I've just juiced and then put through a steel tea strainer just to get as much of the bits out as possible. Add ice and stir until nice and chilly. Then add plenty of ice to a fancy tall glass. And now for the moment of truth. It's had 2 days in the fridge to pressurize. Will it pop? Well, that was violent. Pour in about 100 ml of our Lacto rhubarb soda into the bottom of the glass. I'm impressed it actually worked. Pour the contents in the tin over the ice and then give it a quick swizz and garnish with a nice grapefruit wedge. This is super delicious, refreshingly mouth-watering, and exceptionally clean. I love it. And finally, this is the Undercover Paloma. Cheers. So there you go, team, 3 killer serves using garden favorite rhubarb. I am absolutely hankering for a rhubarb crumble right now. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy what you saw, give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more in the future, and drop a comment down below if you want to see us explore your favorite thing soon. Until next time, take it easy, be good, love you, bye.